Coming back to class after a couple of weeks, I had time to do 2 missions that Holy Week, so we ended up missing 3 weeks now. So, but the missions went well. I did the I certainly put together a new gig. I could say a whole new thing. Usually I do the consecration and missions. I've been doing them for years, but this was the Jewish roots of baptism, penance, and Eucharist, 3 nights. 1, 2, 3, and then a lot of the stuff you've heard a little bit, but I put it all together in three nights of hour or so presentation, and I have to say we went well. It was really good. That's really.
Where did you do that?
One in Holbrook at Good Shepherd, and then down in New Jersey. It was down in a parish down there. So I'll take that on the road now and see how it goes, and keep that a whole new thing. But the one thing I'd say that was great, and I've been doing missions for a long time, and a lot of times the priests, it's sometimes it's their vacation time. They're a one-man parish, and I come and then they go. So you don't get so much feedback or whatever, and some of the priests don't come. Most times they don't come. So, but anyway, the pastor will come. But was really good. All the priests came every night.
Wow.
Yeah, all the priests. Nice. So that was good.
You get a reputation.
That was kind of cool, yeah, because they said I'd never heard any of this stuff before.
Which is, I'm glad you're.
Yeah. So that was good. It's really some good material that was appreciated, and people really like, wow, it's never. The Jewish roots of baptism. Talking about the baptismal site and how it relates to Judaism, and Elijah and the Exodus story happens right there. So I came up with this new, as I preach, sometimes I get the insight myself. It's like, oh, look at that, that's even better. Oh wow. so the second one was better than the first one, But but that whole idea of they crossed the Jordan River to return to the Holy Land, and so it is a line, from slavery to freedom and death to life and this whole kind of thing, prefiguring baptism for sure. But it's the same spot, it's the same spot. And then it's also the same spot where Elijah gets taken up, so it's a demarcation line between this world and the next. So it's X marks the spot.
Have you ever been there physically?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Do you feel it?
It's an amazing place, it's not much to look at. It's just the river. And the Israelis, and the Jordan River is not impressive at all. It's only from here to there. Well, a little bigger, maybe 30 feet wide, and you can go in it. A lot of people do. They go dunk and do a renewal of their baptism. I always do a renewal ceremony, and I pour water on everybody, when we get there, and I guess it's because it is what it is. They must have a place to live. But I've been there probably 6 or 8 times at least, and 2 of those times. The first time I went, and this maybe 3rd or 4th time, a white dove shows up. They must be living somewhere. I don't know. It's the desert, though. It's like,
white dove.
What's this white dove doing hanging out here? Like, come on, what's this? This is pretty funny, but they're not there all the time either. That's funny. I don't know what that's about. So anyway,
I'm glad you say that, because sometimes things happen and I question it, and I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, God, I didn't mean to question it."
Yeah, well, it's just funny. Well, I'm sure they must have a cage somewhere, or a roost, or whatever they call it, for the birds to live in, and so it's cool. It's certainly nice to see. So, but the idea of the 2 lines, the line between here and there, heaven and earth, and the line, crossing the earth, one place to the other. So it is that transition spot, and that's exactly what happened with Jesus. Then he goes from also, private life to public ministry, and all that kind of stuff. So they were, then the lowest point of the earth, that it made a big deal about that's the lowest point, and you're surrounded by 1,400 feet of water that's being held back by all the land that's around you. You've just gone into the land so deep. And it's 1,400 feet to get to sea level, and then another 2,000 to get up to Jerusalem. That's about 2,000 above sea level. So the geography of everything, it's revealing. You start seeing things and make these connections. Like, wow, God really made this. This is all part of the story, and the geography itself is the fifth gospel. And you can learn more about the faith and how things work when you know where things are. You see how they relate to one another. These places, when you get get the geography pretty good in your mind, then you can really just connecting more dots, as it were. So anyway, we'll start with a prayer. So let's begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of your Son, Jesus, who enlightens our world and our life with his love and his grace and his mercy. We ask your blessing upon us in the church, our families, as we continue on this journey now through the joy of the resurrection. As we pray, glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Okay, so two of you were at the Seder, yeah, both of you. So what'd you get out of it? I wanted to go a little bit about the Seder today to start us off.
Me or?
Yeah, whichever. Yeah, thoughts, questions.
Well, it's the second one I was at.
Yeah.
And the first one was.
You went to the first one where?
The first Seder that was 2 years ago that I was at. You had like 2 years or 3 years ago.
At Rock Hill?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, the live one. You were at the last live one.
Yes, the last live
wow,
one.
that long ago. Wow, okay. So then you went to this one.
Went to this one.
Yeah, because we had 2 years, we just did it online
Right.
and stuff,
So, being with my background what it is, and being that I get a little antsy sometimes, the rabbi was a little long-winded the first time. Gotti was really, and this time I thought he did a really, really excellent presentation, understandable for everybody, for me. I thought it was really good. Brought friends with me. He had been to a Seder when he was younger, but it was a regular Seder. He said he didn't understand a thing that was going on. So we got in the car, he said, this is really good. So I really understand it. And so it was really,
yeah, he certainly the last one we did live, 2 years, 3 years ago, whatever it was now. It's two Easters, two Seders ago. That was three ago. So anyway, he it'd be 19. So 20 and 21 we didn't do live. So but he gets so into the details, and that he went long. So we knew that last time. And I said, you got to just try to get through the first part because we have to rush the second part, and we don't hardly get anything there. So people have heard a lot of your details from the beginning, so try to rush through it.
What he skipped was fine. It was
Yeah.
okay.
So
got the good parts.
Got to the good parts, yeah. So there's certainly a million things you can say, but anyway, okay. Good. How'd you do with it?
I loved it. I enjoyed it. I'm planning. I didn't know you were doing it for 16 years, so I'm planning on coming. I have 2 Jewish sister-in-laws. My first one, she didn't come, but the second one, I talked to her on Easter, and I said, "Would you be one?" She said, "Yeah, I'll go with you next time." So it will be good because it's a perspective from both.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah, the whole point is to educate Christians about the Jewish roots. The Jewish roots of the Mass, especially, of course. So
it was excellent.
Yeah, good.
I think doing that has really just enhanced and that's the whole purpose of why you're doing it, but my whole experience at Mass, knowing the Old Testament better than I did. I don't know it wonderfully, but it just has enhanced the whole celebration.
Yeah, there's so many crossover things and so many pieces of it that are really, really important and underlining them. So when I finally, I did baptism the first night, then I did penance the second night, the whole sacrificial system, and then confession, how that all ties in. And then, the third night was on the Eucharist, and so people were really primed for that. Then they put some of the pieces together with the sacrifice and the blood, and animal sacrifice and all kinds of things. You know, they got a full dish. You know, so it was really it was fun. It was really
At the seder, I didn't realize it, but the Catholic Mass originally was a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you had mentioned it at the same time.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You always pick up stuff.
Yeah, pick up a little piece. St. Paul complains about it in one of his letters. He's castigating the I don't know, I think it was the Corinthians, where he says to the folks, you know, the rich. The one problem was rich and poor. You know, so you're bringing all this great food, and the other people sitting around hungry. You know, that's not so good. And the poor people have nothing. And then people getting drunk, 4 cups of wine, right. You know, doing that. And then the third thing, there were 3 things. And then the other thing was, you know, once the Gentiles started coming along, you know, the Jews were comfortable and wanted to keep kosher. So, you know, here these Gentiles come in with their ham sandwiches, and they're like, well, you can't be at my table. You're like, really? Go over there. You can't do this, you know, whatever. And of course, you get the division in the body of Christ. It's this, you know. So finally, you can hear probably lasted, you know, 10 years or so, 10, 20 years, maybe, if that. And then they finally just made a decision. It's okay, forget this whole meal seder thing. We need to stop. And then the blessing of the bread and the blessing of the wine get stuck together and conflated. But they were really at 2 ends of the seder, you know, and so the blessing of the bread comes first, and then at the end of the meal, every time I say it at Mass now, I just hear it, you know, at the end of the meal, he took the cup. So that means a big space of time. They had the whole meal in the middle. We don't see it anymore because it's not there, but the whole meal would have been there. And then at the 3rd cup, he took, at the end of the meal, that's where the 3rd cup sits, he took the cup, gave it, and said, this is the cup of my blood. So again, it's signifying, here's the body, and here's the blood. So what did you think of the Epikomen? Did you catch all the Epikomen? What that was about?
You've explained that before, and
yeah.
That just blew me away when you did the three pieces of matzah.
Right.
And the second one is like Jesus.
It's
crazy.
It is crazy, and they don't even see it. I mean, they don't know what, you know, like how a Christian is totally affected by what you're doing. You're doing, you're doing the seder, and the part of the ritual at the beginning when the bread is blessed. And this time too, it wasn't done right. I have to clarify that. We need more matzah. Yeah, we need more matzah, and we should have 3 full matzahs under the blanket. I wasn't there to see how they were doing it. Yeah, so that needs to be fixed. Next year we'll fix it. So you can put pieces, a half on everybody's plate, you know, not to waste it, because a lot of people don't eat it, you know, they'll eat a little bit. But anyway, so you start with 3, now it's covered by a linen napkin, and there's 3 matzahs. It's a square, big square thing, 1, 2, 3. So they take it and they take out the middle piece. Okay, so every time I see 3, okay, I think of Holy Trinity, you know. So, but the middle one, okay,
they break it.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and that's the one that is broken. Okay, so it's broken and you try to get it in half, but he does this teaching, you know, life is not fair. You're never going to get exactly half. So, but then the bigger piece you take then and wrap it in the linen and you hide it away. Okay, so I'm like, what are you doing? What is that? So here is the body that's broken. It's wrapped in linen and put away till the end of the meal. And then the beautiful part is that the last thing you do at the Seder, the last thing you do, not what you say, but what you do is, well, the kids and the family, they'll go look to find where the Epikomen was hidden. And they get a little prize and make a game out of it, kind of thing. But then they bring it back to the table, and then that piece is broken into little pieces, so that the last thing, and this is exactly what Gotti said the first time we did the seder, and it made me crazy. He said, because the last thing you do is you take this matzah and you eat it, so you have the taste of the matzah on your tongue for the journey home. Oh yeah? Wow. That's a way to say it. So Holy Communion, and we, I hope you know what viaticum is. Viaticum is the final communion. So if you ever have that situation for yourself or someone else, you can ask for viaticum, and it is you get the priest or whoever, the Eucharistic minister can still do it, but it is different prayers. When it's clear, oh go Christian, oh go in the peace of God, and may this, the Eucharist speed your journey or something. It's really clear that this is the last communion. Now it may not be the last communion, but it's okay, but you've had viaticum, so it's part of the last rites.
What if somebody's not responsive or something?
Yeah, I always do it anyway. I do it. Then I just take a little fragment, just a little piece, and put it like inside there. I ask somebody to do that, or I do it sometimes myself, just a little bit of the host, a little fragment. And if they got some saliva, it's fine. Just but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful prayer, and people don't see it, because a lot of times they don't do it, but it really should be done. If you know the end is near. So a lot of times people don't want to do it, think about it, but I think that's part of life. Why don't you say a real goodbye instead of making believe and like, oh, look what happened. So anyway, so anything else from the Seder? Any questions for you?
No, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, just okay.
Very much.
Oh, you were there too now, right? Yeah, you were there. Yeah. How'd your husband do? Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah, I was very interested.
Okay. Anything stick out in particular for you?
I think you should explain it more,
Mm-hmm.
because for us, for the first time.
First
we're
time.
Like,
So she's looking for more detail. Yeah,
definitely. For more details.
Yeah.
Maybe we should write it out more.
Yeah, you can maybe
Prepare
try to
ourselves.
prepare a little bit with it. I don't know, like a Seder 101 book. I don't know what that's about, how to find something like that. But it is the repetition of it each year, that you kind of capture some more.
Right.
So the one thing that I said that was really unique for me this year was I picked up the detail of when Jesus, first, there's the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, okay? And Synoptic means from the same vantage point, the same lens, the same. So scholars, people, they pretty much agree that Mark is probably the first gospel. So you have Mark as the source from Matthew and Luke. So to Mark is added what's called Q. Okay, Q stands for Quell, and Quell in German means words, the words of Jesus. Okay, so Jesus does a lot of words, and some Bibles they'll make them in red. You'll see it in red. These are the words of Jesus. Okay. So Mark doesn't have a whole lot of the words. His is the shortest gospel. It tells the basic story. We think it was first, and Mark was not an eyewitness, but the second generation, he worked with Peter and Paul, and was Peter's secretary. So he writes his gospel short and sweet. If you notice, there's no infancy narrative, and there's not a whole lot of resurrection stories. Okay, so it's just the basic teachings of Jesus, the death and resurrection. Boom. That's about it. So if we only had Mark, we wouldn't know anything about the birth of Jesus. So, and a lot of the words of Jesus. So So what scholars will do is like, okay, here's Mark, and I'll do it here, I'll chalk here, you can see it just fine. So you have Mark as the first, then you have Q, the words of Jesus, and then you have particular Luke material and particular Matthew material. So Mark is just Mark. Luke is Mark plus Q plus L. Matthew is Mark plus Q plus M. Okay, so this is the same because there are actual parts of Matthew, Mark, and Luke that are identical. Matthew and Luke are identical to Mark. The order pretty much is the same of all the stories of how they fall, but then they get expanded with Q material, the sayings of Jesus. So you get more words of Jesus' teachings. Plus you get unique material that is only found in Luke or only found in Matthew. Okay, so that's those three gospels, how they're composed. John comes along, in the end of the first century, and he knows these three gospels. Why repeat? But when I was in the seminary, I have to say, they made an some of the professors made this emphasis that John didn't really do so much with the Eucharist because he doesn't record it. He didn't make an emphasis on it. He washes the feet. He washes the feet of Jesus. That's where. And if we didn't have John, we wouldn't even know that happened. So the washing of the feet is unique to John, that part of the story. So John doesn't mention bread and wine. So they believed, they were teaching that, well, it wasn't a big deal for John's community, it seems. John's community, John also wrote John 6. John 6 is all that eat my flesh, drink my blood stuff. And eat my flesh, and my flesh is real food, my blood is real drink. That's all John 6. That's heavily Eucharistic. It's the whole teaching on the Eucharist. And so some of these teachers would downplay that John didn't make a big deal because he didn't include it. Well, he didn't need to. Hello. Why? You only got this much parchment. You can't write everything down. You have to be selective. So John wanted us to remember. He knows that the Eucharist is already established. People are doing the Eucharist. They got that part of the story. But all three synoptics forgot about the washing of the feet. So John includes that when he gets to the Last Supper. So in that, he says that Jesus, and he gives an explanation too of service. As I have done to you, you should do to one another, wash each other's feet. But also it's connecting back to another Jewish experience, that when Moses and Aaron instituted the priesthood, the Jewish priesthood, the ceremony included washing of their hands and washing of their feet. There it is. So the washing of the feet instituted the priesthood. So what was Jesus doing right there? Hello, instituting the priesthood. Because they were about to, and as you have done, as I've done to you, you should do, So the washing of the feet then becomes, I didn't understand the Jewish roots of that. So that is also connected to the priesthood. So that's another big deal right there. So if you noticed in the Seder, there were 2 hand washings. He did wash his hand twice. And of course, you notice at the Mass, the priest washes his hands before the consecration. Now there's a functionality to it, clean your hands, because in the old days, the offertory wasn't just money. In the old days, people would bring a duck, or they'd bring some eggs, or they'd bring, chicken, give to the poor, give to the priest, whatever it was for. And so the priest would be getting all this stuff, and then he'd wash his hands. But that's part of the Seder meal too. Before you eat the bread, you wash the hands. So anyway, so that was one new thing that I picked up this year. I heard it in some other readings I was doing. So just to keep thinking, you know, Jesus didn't make up everything. He gave it new meaning and new insights, but there's continuity, you know, with the Old Testament and the Jewish rituals. So, hello there. Yeah, question or something?
I was wondering, I wanted to go to that seder, but I heard that, you know, the reclining a table, that was in the Gospels last week, and that they're at the seder, right? And so they said that the celebrant of the seder now puts a little pillow under his left arm to represent reclining.
Reclining, because people don't want to recline, they're not really laying on the floor, you can't do it at a regular table now.
So I thought that was...
Yeah, but they recline as showing, like, this is the celebration of our redemption. We are not slaves, we're moving away from slavery, so we recline the table like wealthy people, you know, and free people, like our masters would do it. But now we are now doing that, we're not just eating on the run and just go. So it is all about, you know, from slavery to freedom, you know, and then and you now run your own schedule. Another thing that we didn't really hit so much on, but that's been part of former seders, it's really important to note too, I'd never heard this explained, but you know, we hear that phrase, let my people go. Let my people go. It's half the sentence. And it's only popular to say, let my people go, and you have this idea, okay, don't want to be a slave, I want to do whatever I want to do, I'm a free man, I do, you know. That's only half the sentence. It's a full sentence, and we don't even do the other part, most people. Let my people go so that they may worship me.
Oh, that's a big important.
That's a big important part of the sentence.
It is.
Let my people go. Why? I want to dance in the desert, you know, whatever. No, let my people go so the idea to receive the freedom, because they weren't allowed to worship as God was calling them. It seemed to the part of the story that, you know, we talk about in some of the seders, that God wanted them just to go out into the desert originally, to go out into the desert to worship by sacrificing the lamb, which is a god of the Egyptians. So showing that we don't believe that this is a god, we're going to offer in sacrifice. So that would have got the Egyptians annoyed. You know, like, what are you doing? You're killing our God, you're making fun of us. So they were supposed to go out into the desert, do the sacrifice, and then come back. And then that was one interpretation or a midrash, I'm not sure exactly how it fits, but I remember saying that one time. It's like, wow, but let my people go so that they can worship me. So that's the whole point of the freedom to worship and to be in communion with God. So that was a big part of the story too. There was one more point, it just flipped in my head, flipped right out again. Anyway. So it was we'll do it again, of course. It's something we do each year, and come next year we'll see how we do. Good. All right. So for public service announcement, I do going to Medjugorje. If anybody wants to go to Medjugorje, we're going in June 3rd. So I got some flyers here if you're interested. And September 16th, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, make a Catholic pilgrimage without the rabbi. So we'll do the regular Catholic pilgrimage. I don't have flyers on them, I'll have them next week. And also, just to let you know then too, May 22nd, I'll be leaving on to Ostrabrama. Ostrabrama is the Passion Play in Germany, so we'll be off for a couple of weeks there. So I'm going to go from Ostrabrama to Medjugorje, then to Jerusalem. I got to get myself back to Jerusalem. So there's a small group that want to just go to Jerusalem and spend time there, that have been on former trips and pilgrimages. And so we'll be back, I think, the 20th of June. So it's almost a month to be away. Yeah, almost a month there.
Starting May 22nd.
After May 22nd, we won't have classes. After, yeah. May 22nd we're leaving, so whatever the Monday, I think we're leaving Sunday night, so the Monday.
And then you come back.
And then the 20th, I think I'm back.
When?
The 20th.
June 20th?
Yeah. She came back on the 21st, I guess, yeah. April, May, June. Yeah,
May 22nd is a Sunday,
right.
and June
I know it's
20th
the
is a
20th.
Monday.
Yeah,
What's the
so
Wednesday before?
we'll be back.
The Wednesday before the 22nd is the 18th of May.
Mhm.
That's the last one that you're gonna do?
Yeah,
And then you're coming back June 20th, and the next one you're gonna do is the 22nd of Wednesday?
we'll be back on early Monday morning.
You think that might be
Is
a
it?
little
Yeah,
too?
that's too
It
much,
might be a
yeah.
little-
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna start up on June 20th, the week of the 20th.
You will?
No, I'm sorry, the next week, 27th.
So that would be the 29th, June 29th?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So we'll have class on the 29th. Okay, so back to the textbook. We're finally getting to talk about, we've done our, let's see, where were we here? Okay.
I had it at 4:50.
We were on 450 and 451, the rise of the monarchs. So we did talk about the popes, the difficulties with the papacy. We're in the 1400s now. So page 450, around there we are. I don't know tons about all the monarchs. I guess I just haven't had, that much, that type of history that, that of all the kings and this one and that one. No, basically the story as it relates to the church stuff. So that's where I pay my attention. And so, but just to rehash a little bit that the popes, the papacy has gone through a hard time. We had that 70 years, we call it the Avignon papacy, where the popes were invited by the King of France to go live in France. So they took him up on it, gave him a nice palace, and then of course began to kind of control and influence the church a little bit. So the people in Rome are not happy, of course. The Pope's supposed to be in Rome, not supposed to be in France. And so for about 70 years or so, I don't know how many popes there were a succession of them, and the confusion that it caused the church and how it affected people's understanding and respect, for the papacy. So at one point, there was actually 3 popes, because you had one in France, one in Rome, and then the one that was trying to depose the other 2 or whatever. It got very messy, and who was gonna, try to fix this? Turns out Catherine of Siena, St. Catherine of Siena comes along and really is instrumental on bringing that to a conclusion and say, okay, Pope, you have to come back to Rome, come to Rome. So basically that's what's going on, but this is all through the, maybe into the late 1300s, but into the 1400s. So it's a big piece of time, and so that the respect, like I said, of the institution of the papacy is not so hot. People are.
So she went to the Pope that was in Avignon.
Well, I don't know exactly the details of it all. Who
and how do you get rid of the other 2?
Yeah, how do you get rid of the other 2? and well, they died. Somebody died off finally. Okay. But finally they said, you can't be there. I don't know all the details. It was back pages back, and months ago we did look at it a little bit. So it's not so clear to me exactly, but just to know that it happened, and it affects people's imagination and faith, how to deal with the papacy, So now we're into the 1400s, and then we get, the Renaissance begins, and then we did talk a little bit about Innocent and Alexander and Julius, Innocent III, Alexander VI, and Julius II. These are the clinkers, the most clinkers. Some of them were clinkers of the whole lot. There's always been a few clinkers here and there, but I like what Scott Hahn said, that these guys were so busy sinning, okay, that they didn't take the church into heresy. Morally they were not so great, but they didn't sit around writing theological statements on whatever, the Trinity or Eucharist or whatever. They didn't do any of that stuff, but they were certainly clinkers. They had illegitimate children. They had all kinds of stuff happening, and it's a mess. It's a little bit of a mess. So you can see how we're getting primed for the Reformation. that some folks are just gonna say, this is enough, and we need to try to clean up the act a little bit here. So, and also, you know, but all of these guys all have a taste, you know, for the beauty and good and nice, and the Renaissance is cooking. The big decision was to take down St. Peter's, the old St. Peter's, that Constantine built in the 300s, and it lasted till the 1400s. So 1,000 years that building stood, but it was built on a cemetery, so it's it's, you know, soft earth, whatever, you know. So the church was constantly kind of cracking and having problems. So they tried to repair it and finally decided, okay, that's it. Enough is enough. We got to take this one down and we'll build something new. At the very time this happens, 1453, remember what that year represents? The fall of Constantinople. Okay, so Constantinople had the biggest church in the world. It was bigger than St. Peter's in Rome, the old St. Peter's. So what does the Pope want to do? Build back better. Build back better. So, so they get the idea, we're going to build the new St. Peter's, which we know today. Michelangelo gets a hold of that one and busts it out even bigger, because they want it to be now bigger than Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia in Constantinople is now a mosque. It's a disaster for the church, terrible, terrible situation. So the Muslims take over all of Turkey, which had been the center of the church, bigger than Rome during the first 1,000 years. So Eastern Christianity really gets whacked at this point. So this is, to this day, the Orthodox are still, you know, kind of just happy to stay in their monastery or in their church. It's been such a difficult time. And just when you thought the Muslims were under control or whatever, then the communists came. So they've been dealing with a lot in their history out there in the East. So, okay, so they get the desire to build, and then Sixtus, I've made the joke, Sixtus the Fourth. Now all these posts, the page, the prior page there, all of these popes are really trying to restore Rome now to a glorious city. They're trying to make it big and better. And St. Peter's is going to be another part of it. But so Sixtus also, since they're building, he gets the idea we're going to build the Sistine Chapel. That's how it gets its name, Sistine, Sixtus the Fourth. But this guy, he built a lot of stuff all over the place. So everywhere you go in Rome is the name of a pope on it who put it up, you know, it's a fountain or it's an archway, it's a this, it's a that, whatever. There's names all over the place. So I kept seeing Sixtus the Fourth, and then there was Sixtus the Fifth. So I said, where's Sixtus the Sixth? It's so hard to say, yeah. Sixtus the Sixth. So I've decided that if I become pope, I'm going to take that name, Sixtus. They said there's no Sixtus the Sixth, so yeah, I said, oh, that'll be me. I'll take Sixtus the Sixth. So, but the unique thing about him, he built the Sistine Chapel, and he wanted it to be exactly the dimensions of the temple in Jerusalem. So it was really kind of cool. Rabbi Gotti came to visit me while I was on my sabbatical over in Rome, and I was there for the 3 months. He was going to Israel. And so he stopped in Rome, and we went in. It was beautiful. Of course, St. Peter's. He'd been there a long time ago to see the Vatican, but it was so cool. He's, you know, he loves churches, and he loves, like, wow, you people, you know, temple. I mean, synagogues are a study hall. It really is meant to be a study hall, and they can look nice, but that's not the point. The point is to study Torah, and so some of them could be pretty plain, and you know, whatever. Well, you walk into these churches, you know, and he's like, whoa. But it was beautiful. I, you know, got inspired. I said, well, you realize this is all in honor of one of your guys. He goes, oh, that's right. A Jewish fisherman. This is in honor of a Jewish fisherman. So then we go into the Sistine Chapel, and then we're looking around, and I said, oh, yeah, I just found out, I heard this in one of the lectures, that this is exactly the dimensions of what the temple was in Jerusalem. He goes, really? He's looking around like, wow, that's so cool. I mean, you people really took a lot of the stuff. You really just putting it into practice. So the architecture is a big deal, you know, for the Renaissance period. So the church is going to be certainly in the midst of all of this kind of stuff. So build back better, and so Rome is trying now, because Constantinople is lost to the Christians. Now Rome needs to be really the center of Christendom. So it's going to be the attempt to make that happen. Okay, so now we're going to get into the monarchs and all the new kings and all the rest coming along here. So in the 15th century, we're on page 451. In the 15th century, a new breed of monarch began to develop out of the old feudal kingdoms of Christendom. The Hundreds Year War, 1337, 1453, look at that, it ended the same year as the fall of Constantinople, which had pitted France against England, was ending, and the two emerging kingdoms took on new forms. So the 100 Years' War, imagine, France and England fighting for 100 years. Slow, bang, bang, battle after battle. What does that do to your economy? What does it do to people? What does it do to the landscape? All the rest. It's just unfortunate, terrible. So they kind of wear themselves out. So once they stop fighting, what happens then is that both places, France and England, go into like a series of almost like civil wars. Because who's going to, after all that destruction, now these two places are trying to unify something, but who's going to be the ruler? Who's going to run it now? So there's a lot of little tensions going on between who's supposed to be the king, and now we're going to start unifying into what we now know to be England and France. Okay, and we're going to get to Spain too. So, so the Civil War and feudal rebellion had afflicted a good deal of Europe in the latter part of the Middle Ages, and a different type of monarch emerged to lay down the foundations of the modern state. These new rulers expanded their domains and instituted a broader, tighter, and more efficient form of government. So they're trying to consolidate, trying to make it big, you know, so at the medieval times, lots of dukes, lots of duchesses, lots of mini princes and whatevers, and everybody's got their little realm, you know, and now the kings are really going to start trying to say, okay, we're going to take over as much as I can. There's some good things about streamlining and making a unified government. Okay, there's some good things about that, but you lose some of that nice spice about each little culture, each little place, you know. So this has been the battle since Adam and Eve. You know, who's going to rule and how are they going to rule? You know, so and this is, you know, what Rabbi Gotti gives a good teaching. We didn't get into so much again this time, but to really the whole struggle for the Exodus and the story of, you know, Egypt to Rehoboth, from Egypt to the Promised Land. Egypt is Pharaoh and everybody else is a slave. And Promised Land, what God intends, instead of every one above the other, it's supposed to be shoulder to shoulder. You know, this idea of some more equality, you know, going on there. So this is the whole struggle of the human journey. You know, how do we do that? And you know, this idea of unity and the idea of diversity. How do you find that balance? And God Himself is that. That's what I love to keep pointing out. The Trinity is not some, whatever, you know, concept. It really is the pattern of what the universe could be. You know, unity, perfect unity, and perfect diversity. So Father is not the Son is not the Spirit, but they are one. So how do you achieve that? It's only the work of the Holy Spirit that can bring that unity and diversity, you know, into being in the world. But that's sort of the goal, you know, unity and diversity. But sometimes we go too far to the unity, you know, everybody's going to be one, or everybody's doing their own thing. Everybody's unique, you know, separate. So, okay, so all these ancient traditions and systems and alliances are kind of being broken down now because the kings want to get control. and they want to be the guy. So, so this says here, the manors and territorial courts in England were replaced by the reintroduction of Roman law. So at least a unified legal system, okay, that's probably a good idea. You know, so that it's not just the whim of this duke or duchess says off with your head kind of thing. There's going to be some kind of a better legal system put into practice. So due to the ongoing wars and rebellions from which these monarchs arose, the kings continued to tax their subjects and have access to a ready source of income. Maintenance and support of local nobles was declared illegal, and the monarchs moved to bring down local castles and coats of arms of their opposition. Bureaucratic administration and diminished power of the aristocracy led to increased central authority. These new states would dominate the start of the new modern era. So we're unifying things. You know, this one world order idea that people
I was just gonna say, it sounds like.
yeah, it is. Well, now this is to do the whole world now. You know, the year we're just doing, instead of these local little places and villages and towns and little tiny kingdoms, we're going for this unity thing. Okay, good and bad in that. It's efficient. It works. We're always trying to recover the, you know, in European imagination, there's always this desire for the Roman Empire again. You know, that's when you know, everybody was under Roman law and everything was the peaceful Pax Romana, because they'd kill you if you went out of line. so that's what happened. So and Jesus is literally was killed that way, you know, going out of line, destroying the peace or whatever, you know, that's what, you know, bringing riots and whatever. So, all right, so here we go. King Louis the 11th, 1461, that's just not his age, it's his reign. And his successors emerged as the new monarchs in France. Because of the 100 Years' War, these Valois kings had developed a professional army to suppress brigands and subdue rebellious nobles. So all these little knights, these little guys that were in their own little territories, he's squashing them all. All right, he doesn't want any opposition on the king. So they really try to push this whole unity thing under one king. So one thing that happens here, when the Duke of Burgundy died without a male heir, Louis XI was able to absorb the powerful state of Burgundy, which had supported England. Okay? So imagine here's France, you know, we got our little map. Paris is, you know, here's France like a square, and Paris is here, and this is all the French area, England being up there, okay, and then Burgundy is down here in the south. So imagine how the king felt, okay, these guys here are with supporting the British, the English, you know. And this is the whole period of Joan of Arc and this time here too, this is all, you know. So the battle is between England and France, so you got somebody down here, you got somebody up here, and surrounding, so that's not so good, you know. So the king goes down and absorbs this whole, what had been its own kingdom, of Burgundy. So so he takes that little piece of land and continues on. This is the time of the solidification of what we now know as these modern states. So the next page, England entered its own civil conflict at the end of the 100 Years' War. Two major feudal houses clashed for the English crown in the War of the Roses. Maybe you've heard this phrase, the War of the Roses. So it's the English Civil War. The war lasted for 30 years and left the two noble houses, the Yorks and the Lancaster, decimated. The Tudors proved victorious, and Henry Tudor became Henry VII, the new King of England. The expanded trade encouraged private enterprise, ended the practice of maintenance and support of local nobles, and consolidated his kingdom. By avoiding war and granting monopolies, he enhanced his own financial resources. Perhaps his most shrewd and effective move as king was offering for marriage his son and heir, the future Henry VIII, to the powerful Spanish kingdom, Catherine of Aragon, the daughter of Isabella. England recovered and rallied behind the Tudor family, and over time would become one of the foremost powers in Europe. So now we're getting set up right now for, the Reformation period. So this part I'm not so great on, like the wives of Henry VIII. I think there were 6. If you watch the movies, you watch a little bit of it. It's just wow, it's another big mess of situation. But he gets. It's interesting. I didn't know this part of the story. One of the other students had really good. They really know their English history. So get this right. Henry VII had a son, Arthur. He was going to be the heir, but Arthur marries Catherine of Aragon first. Catherine of Aragon, is that who she is? Yeah. And then Arthur dies. So she's already in the family, and according to Jewish law too, this is levirate marriage, it's called. If the older brother, the firstborn, dies, this woman is already in the house, in the family, so the second brother is supposed to raise up an heir for his older brother. So that was kind of the Jewish practice. So Henry marries his brother's wife, but he's dead. He marries her. So he's supposed to produce an heir. She has, from what they were explaining, has a girl, Mary, Queen Mary. So this is Queen Mary, who is Catholic. Catherine of Aragon is the daughter of Isabella in Spain. Remember Ferdinand and Isabella? We talked a little bit about that. We'll get into her next. So she, very Catholic, like devout, very holy, devout lady. And so her kid is very holy and devout Catholic. So, but she's a girl. Henry wants a boy, okay? So this Mary grows up and she survives, but now her mother, Catherine of Aragon, has a bunch of miscarriages after Mary is born. So another boy doesn't come along. This is where he says, okay, I want a divorce, I want to annul this. I need to find myself a bride who can give me a male heir. Yeah.
Sorry, was the Mary the daughter of his brother? Or was
No, it was
Mary,
his. It was
his daughter.
Yeah, his daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, his daughter. Yeah, yeah. I pretty sure. Yeah, Mary is Henry's daughter, Henry VIII's daughter, not Arthur. I'm pretty sure. Again, I'm not really good at all this stuff. All these this part of the story. The monarchies are crazy. One thing for sure to know is that it is pretty. They're incestuous. I mean, it's really just the way it works. Everybody, they really have their bloodline, and so that's why you marry another royal. So they're all related. All the European royalty is all really connected. They're all cousins to each other, and for good and for bad. Mm-hmm. So how that ties people together and all this stuff, it's just amazing. So anyway, so Henry. Now look what happened here too. Now, okay, so you have England on the map, then you got France, and then you got Spain. Okay, so England has had a history of hating the French. So what do you want to do? You want to be friends with, trying to surround France. So he marries off his son to the Spanish princess. Okay, so in a way, kind of boxing in France. That's a strategy there too. Just to try to keep this thing going.
Yeah, but she couldn't have a son, right? So then he got rid of her?
Yeah.
So how did that do with the relations of Spain?
Oh yeah, that messed it up because we got to get the Spanish Armada being wiped out by the English. Yeah, that's coming later. England fought with Spain too, a lot, as the years are going to go by. So because everybody now. Well, we get into Isabella. We're going to talk about her now. How much time we got here? We got
10
4 or 5
minutes or so.
Yeah, so about 5. Okay. Yeah, we'll go into more detail about all these marriages. We're just getting this set up of how Henry came along, Henry VIII, and his first start with his relationship with Catherine of Aragon. So, okay, Spain, Isabella, the Catholic Queen. Okay, so at the beginning of the 15th century, Spain as a nation did not exist. The Iberian Peninsula was comprised of 5 major kingdoms: Portugal, Castile, Leon, Aragon, and the Muslim kingdom of Granada. Okay, tried it now. Spain basically is a square. You know, you can kind of look at it as a square. And we've talked about this before, but remember the 700s, the Muslims come up from Africa, take all of Spain, and go all the way up into France. They push back. Charles Martel in, 714 or something, pushes them back over the Pyrenees. There's still Catholics there all over, but now this is in the 700s. Okay, so it's now in the 1400s, after whatever that is, 700 years, the reconquest of Spain is almost complete. So here's Spain, Catholics to the north, Muslims to the south. Over these hundreds of years, it kept going like this, up and down, up and down. Who's in charge, who can win the battle, I don't know the details. But it was a constant struggle of who was attacking who and taking more land. So it had been all Catholic. The Muslims came up, took it over, and then began this 700-year battle back and forth. So remember I think we talked about Guadalupe. We talked about Guadalupe one time with the queen. This is Isabella, this is her, this is Isabella Ferdinand. The original Guadalupe being in Spain. As they are pushing the Muslims down, they find the statue of Our Lady and baby Jesus. A cow dies on the river. The farmer finds the dead cow, begins to butcher the cow. Our Lady appears and says, dig here, build a church, and the cow is alive. Comes back, catches everybody's attention. The priest comes, everybody, they dig, they find this chest with an image of Our Lady and baby Jesus as a statue. It was given by the Pope to the Bishop of Seville in the 600s. When the Muslims came to town in the 700s, they hid it and they buried it because the Muslims would destroy it. 700 years later, it's found. Spain, of course, has been dealing with this very real situation with the Muslims up and down for 700 years. And when they find this, they know what it is. They have records that the Pope in the 600s gave it to the Bishop of Seville. It was there, but in order to preserve it, they hid it, and of course lost it. But it got rediscovered miraculously. Okay, big apparition story, So they dig, they find it, and they build a church. And they build. Now again, think of the spiritual aspirations of wanting to liberate your land. This, used to be Catholic, and the Muslims came, all this just 700 years of warfare. And so this was a big sign to the people of Spain. God was going to redeem them. So they build a big shrine, and it gets bigger and bigger over the decades. And now Queen Isabella and Ferdinand, they're Catholic, very devout. They marry, and they marry these 2 kingdoms now, become big enough that they can really go after Granada. Granada is down in the south. Okay, so Granada is the last Muslim territory. So they do it, they finish it off. So they were going to attack again. The Muslims were always, it's always going to be attacked up into the Catholics. It wasn't like, just leave us alone, we'll be nice. No, they were always it was just back and forth all the time. So Queen Isabella builds a palace, right? She wants to live next to the shrine. So it's called Guadalupe because it's Wadi in Arabic. It had been an Arab place, Arabic. So Wadi means river and Lupe means wolf. So Wadi Lupe. So it's Nuestra Senora de Guadalupe. So it's spelled how we spell it now. So it's a Spanish rendering of an Arabic word.
So it's a Wolf River?
The Wolf River, yeah. So it was in Arabic. The name was in Arabic, not in Spanish. So it's still called Guadalupe. So, okay, so then remember, this is why it's so fascinating. I love these connections. Never knew all this stuff, but Columbus now, when he's ready to do his thing, it's 1492 now. So Columbus goes to Guadalupe, where Ferdinand and Isabella live, to go ask them, can you support me on this journey? And being that he was very pious himself, he wanted to do it for two reasons. Number one, to liberate Jerusalem from the Muslims so that Jesus could return. So he had very apocalyptic notions, very religious notions.
Now, why would he go out and do that to liberate the?
Well, he said, if we continue this, if I'm successful. Now remember what happened. Now this is 1492. So 30 some odd years before, 40 years before, the Muslims take Constantinople, the Christian center. Okay, here's Turkey right in the middle, and why we call these two continents, Europe and Asia, two continents. They're not two continents. It's Eurasia. It's one big chunk of land. Okay. Now it's culturally very different. That's probably why we make them two continents, but they're not two continents. People have been walking back and forth from Europe to China and India for tens of thousands of years. It's just the trade routes just went like this. But once the Muslims take the center, Constantinople, then it's not easy to go there anymore. So they wanted to find a water route to go around Africa, or to, Columbus had the idea, if I keep going that way, I'll come around to Asia.
Okay.
I'll hit there. So he goes, but he wants this, he knows that now if we're successful, we'll make money, and then we can do another crusade, basically, to liberate Jerusalem from the Muslims. Now there have always been Christians in the Holy Land, so but they're on their own. We're not able to get there so easily, at this point. So anyway, so this is all these things are connected. So Columbus goes and he wants to try this adventure, and it's another curious little detail. But on the very day Columbus leaves with his ships, the last ship of the Jews and Muslims that needed to leave Spain. If you're going to be living there, we're Catholic. If you're not going to be Catholic, you're out. So you had to leave. So the last boat of the Jews and Muslims went to Morocco. The same day Columbus is leaving the harbor, exactly the same. So the reconquest was complete the day Columbus left to go to the New World. Yeah. So any question or? Okay, so all this is, all tied in. This is a big, and remember we talked about Fatima too. Fatima, the daughter of Fatima, is the daughter of Muhammad. How that happened, it's all the same time. All this stuff is going on in Spain. As the Catholic prince married the Muslim girl named for Muhammad's daughter, Fatima. She dies young and he names the village after his wife, in memory of his wife. So that has Muslim roots as well. And so the last little point I want to put there is, what are the names of the ships? I think we discussed this.
Pinta and Santa Maria.
Right, the Pinta Nina Santa Maria. What does it mean in Spanish? Nina means child, little girl, Niña, Saint Mary. Pinta means painting. Painting of the little girl Mary. It's a prophecy. Where did he leave from, Columbus? Guadalupe. What's going to happen 30 years later?
Guadalupe.
The other Guadalupe, the painting of the little girl Mary. That's the Tumba. Okay, so it is a prophecy. I'm convinced of that. That's crazy stuff.
What happened 30 years later?
the Apparition of Guadalupe. Okay, so Guadalupe, Juan Diego, the whole story. You know what the Tilma, Our Lady of Guadalupe? You don't know the story? Oh, Lordy, okay. Didn't you have an image in here? No.
Did we have Guadalupe?
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up. So so Columbus starts the thing. He gets there in 1492, 93. By 1531, after 30 years now, 40 years, the Spaniards had taken over Mexico. They go in, Montezuma has the king of the Aztecs, has a dream that these white gods are gonna come. So that's how it happened that whatever 500 Spanish conquistadors could overwhelm 15 million people. He had a huge army, huge city. Mexico City was huge, even then. And so he welcomes them in. They see they're doing human sacrifice. They were harvesting all the other little tribes that were around in Central America. They would haul them up to the top of this pyramid and cut their hearts out and offer it to the god, this serpent god. So when Cortez gets there, he looks at the story, he says, okay, I'm in control now. They captured Montezuma. That's where you get that Montezuma's Revenge. That's, if you know what that's about. That's where the name comes from, Montezuma's Revenge. So Cortez takes over and he eliminates immediately the human sacrifice stuff. He says, this is not God, this is idolatry, paganism, terrible stuff, the death of all these people. So he stops it, and then but the Aztecs don't make so many conversions. They're there with priests and everybody. The bishop, the first bishop in the New World, where did he leave from when he left Spain? All the New World, the whole North and South America, he's the first bishop in Mexico City. So that he's sent from what church? Guadalupe in Spain. Okay, so he goes, he leaves the shrine, he gets on a boat, and he says, I'll never see this place again. I'm going to the end of the world, and I'll never come back. So he makes this big dedication himself. Okay, Columbus left from there, I'm leaving from there. Now the first bishop in the New World, he's in Mexico. 30 years have gone by, it's going to be a bloodbath. The natives are getting restless. So there's 20,000 of them, there's 15 million, 20,000 Spaniards, 15 million Aztecs, and we got 1 million bullets. So the bishop is praying, dear God, this is going to be a bloodbath, we're going to be done, this is horrible, we're going to be toast. So there's a knock on the door, it's Juan Diego. He says, this woman is appearing and she wants me to tell you to build a church there. And so of course I'm busy. It blows him off a few times. He says, if it's Our Lady, tell her I want Castilian roses, and it's December 12th. So he goes up the hill, he says, I got, Our Lady says, I have the roses for you. I know what he said. So he puts them in his poncho, and he walks back to the bishop. I'm back, and he presents it, he opens up the roses, and miraculously is this imprint of this image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Well, that becomes that, okay? So the roses imprint, somehow God imprints on that image, okay, this image of Guadalupe. Now what's unique about this, of course, for the Spanish bishop to comprehend, Our Lady is speaking in Aztec, but she's Our Lady. We're the Spanish Catholics. She's Our Lady. She's not your lady. But God seemed, in his wisdom, she comes speaking Aztec, and she comes dressed as an Aztec woman, a pregnant Aztec woman. So the image is miraculous. Nobody knows, how they studied it forever. Don't know, there's all kinds of wild things that are on that image. The eyeballs, they only found that in the 80s. In the 80s, when they examined it with the microscope, and on the eyeballs, you can see the image reflected of what she was seeing in that instant in the people in the room when he opened the tilma. The tilma has a temperature, 98.6. The colors,
It's just a piece of,
Oh, that
the
was-
tilma is the poncho.
Yeah.
And it's made of grass. It lasted now 500 years. So it's amazing. It's just,
Enclosed in some sort of special case or something?
yeah, now it is.
it wasn't though.
But for 400 years, it was not. And they had it in a case in the 1920s, and the Mexican revolutionaries tried to blow it up, and it didn't blow up.
There was a spill on it too, some
Yeah.
sort of cleaning, and it didn't affect it at all.
Yeah. And the colors float above the fibers. It's grass. So it's not like there's no brushstrokes in it, of course. So they kind of almost hover. It's unbelievable. You can study, go online, you can see all the scientific studies of what this is going on. But it's so, the eyeballs are so small. But when you magnify it, you can see the reflection of the people in the room as if it was Mary. Then the other thing I love about too, this on her mantle are the stars that were present on that night of December 12th. How they were known in the sky. The constellations were all there, but it's on the reverse. It's not as we see them from our vantage point, it's from heaven's vantage point. It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff. Look at this. Look what God gave us as a testimony.
And that's Our Lady of Guadalupe?
Our Lady of Guadalupe, yeah. So when the bishop asked who, what's her name, he said something like Cacapupe in Aztec. So he didn't know how to spell that. So he ends up just writing in the text to Rome to report to Rome, we got a miracle, something happened here. That a miracle took place, and he called it Guadalupe. He just gave it the name because that's what he knew. He didn't know how to spell it in the Aztec. But the Aztec translation of that phrase means the one who crushes the head of the serpent. The serpent god that was doing the human sacrifice. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So it's amazing. So Isabella is in the middle of all this. She's rocking and rolling, and so she's there for this whole thing. So she remains, really Catholic. I don't know if she lives no, she wouldn't have lived to Guadalupe, to the miracle of Guadalupe in 1531. I don't think she'd last that long. Anyway, but she sets the groundwork, that it's a unified Catholic country. And then when the Reformation gets cooking, they remain Catholic. They remain Catholic. Okay. So Queen Isabella of Castile was an extraordinary woman and a devoutly Christian ruler. Because of her efforts, the Catholic Church regained much of the authority it had lost in the preceding centuries. Strengthened by Isabella's Spain, the Church would stave off disaster after the Protestant Reformation. Isabella's role within the Catholic Church had as much to do with her personal faith and piety as with her skillful politics. Isabella was a devout, loyal wife who ruled Spain with determination and prudence. She came to the throne following a series of weak monarchs and worked hard to restore the authority of the monarch and bring about internal reforms. When she married Ferdinand of Aragon in 1469, the two largest states in Spain, Castile and Aragon, were united, paving the way for the reconquest of the peninsula. After their marriage, the largest hindrance to Christian unity in Spain was the Moorish North African Muslim kingdom of Granada, which was poised to overwhelm the peninsula as it had done centuries earlier. In 1492, Spanish forces captured Granada, driving out the Moors, the Muslims, and uniting the Kingdom of Spain. As in France and England, war allowed the Spanish monarchs to gain the much-needed taxes that could mold an army loyal to the monarch. The success of the reconquest would turn Spain into the most powerful country in Europe for the next 150 years. Also in 1492, Isabella sponsored the young Italian Christopher Columbus on a mission to find a water route to India. Little did she know that in his failing, Columbus would stumble upon the American continent and open the way for European expansion into the New World. Okay, so. All right, so we'll kind of leave it there. It's really amazing, you know, the connections of Spain and this whole Muslim situation in Europe and related to today. So with the tilma, because of the tilma and the apparition in Mexico, what could have been a bloodbath between the Spanish and the Aztecs forms them into the Mexican people. So the two become like one people of Mexico today. Now, Mexico's not perfect, of course it's not, but it certainly saved a bloodbath. And some writers have said, it's interesting, as the Reformation got brewing in Europe, the church lost 15 million people, right? At the very same time, 15 million are being brought in the New World, into the church. So the whole country becomes Catholic in about 10 years. So everybody gets baptized, and they start the church. So interestingly, yesterday when I was teaching, the Mass for yesterday was Peter coming out of the upper room on Pentecost. Remember, Pentecost is a Jewish feast. That's why all the Jews were in Pentecost. That's why they were there. Pentecost is the Greek name for Shavuot. Shavuot is the 50th day after they leave Egypt. So from Passover, they count out 50 days. On the 50th day, they were at Mount Horeb, where Moses had seen the burning bush. This is where they received the Ten Commandments. Okay? So on the 50th day, now look what the number is, symbolic again. You have to always think of these numbers. God creates the world in 7 days. The 8th day, the next day, is a day of transition. It's the new week. So Jewish boys are circumcised on the 8th day. God created in 7 days, but they're about to enter the covenant. There's going to be a change, there's a crossing over, there's a uniting into so through their blood, the circumcision, they're brought into the covenant on the 8th day. Now this is a big new idea, because you have 7 sevens, 49, 7 sevens, 7 weeks of weeks, 7 weeks of weeks, so 49 days out, and on the 50th day, 5, Pentecost in Greek, Shavuot in Hebrew, the 50th day, they receive the Torah, they receive the Ten Commandments. In Jesus' time, Easter happens. 50 days out from Easter, the Ascension's on the 40th day. On the 50th day, on the Feast of Pentecost for the Jews, now comes the Spirit. The Spirit comes to now know and live the law. The ability to live the law. The Holy Spirit, transforms. So here you go into this new reality. So 50 days. So that's why Paul, St. Peter, on the day of Pentecost, he comes out the door and everybody hears him. They make a big deal. Everybody's hearing in their own language. That's why all the Jews were there from all over the world. It's Pentecost. So they were celebrating the coming of the Torah, the coming of the Ten Commandments. So it was a Jewish feast of Pentecost. We go right on top of it. So as the law came, now the Spirit comes. Okay, on the 50th day, Pentecost. So that's why St. Peter's out there. Now there's another detail. Crazy. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, seeing the folks doing the golden calf, worshiping the calf, and they were mucking it up there, they were doing whatever they were doing. Moses is so offended that they've done such idolatry, and they're seeing what this is a big deal. Okay, so what this text says is that the Levites killed 3,000 people, the people that were doing the whatever with the golden calf. So 3,000 were lost. On the text that we had yesterday at Mass, on the day of Pentecost, Paul comes out, and how many are baptized that day? 3,000. Okay, another number. These numbers are interesting. So just like in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the fall, the golden calf story, 3,000 die, and now 3,000 are brought in. In this day with Guadalupe and all the Reformation lost 15 million, and we got 15 million. But there's no coincidence there. So I love this stuff. I just love to connect these dots. That's just, I find all kinds of, great stuff. So, amen.
Amen.